All right, welcome in. It is college football. It is week 10, and we got quite a slate of games here we're going to go over today. They'll include a game, a pretty good game tonight out west, San Diego State, Boise State. We got an ACC matchup between Louisville and Clemson. And then, of course, the big ACC matchup this week. Who would have thunk this as Pitt and SMU getting ready to do battle here? A couple of top 25 teams. We'll head over to the Big 12 begrudgingly. And, of course, we've got Texas A&M and South Carolina. All of this will be done with the Friday crew known as the A-Team in the house here on the College Football Kickoff Shows. We welcome in, good Lord, what the hell is that? Jesse Schule, what are you wearing? My God, well, don't go there. Hold on. You got suckered or lost a bet or something. I can't wait to hear this. Adam Trigger in the house, and of course, TC, Teddy Covers, ready to roll on this Friday here. So, Jesse, we're going to start with you, the game here on this Friday night, San Diego State, Boise State. I cannot wait to hear the backstory as to how you got suckered into wearing a Colorado jersey on the show, but please elaborate for us if you could.
Yeah, Joe, it was a few weeks ago when Colorado was at UCF. Somebody in the comment section said to me, Colorado is going to win this game by double digits. And I responded by saying, well, if they do, I'll go out and buy some gear and I'll wear it on the show. And I ordered it on eBay a few weeks ago. It just arrived the other day, but I lost the bet and it's time to pay up. And hey, Colorado's playing some pretty good football right now. They've still got some issues, but they're winning games. They're playing well, but I lost a bet and look at me now.
All right, look at you now. Not how it usually works, Jesse. All bad things usually happen with the words, I lost a bet. All right, so let's not lose a bet tonight here as we have the one and only San Diego State. We got a Wales vagina taking on Boise State here tonight, Jesse. How are you looking at this game as Boise's laying, 300 points, it feels like. Any chance for San Diego State to keep this thing close?
Well, is Boise 300 points better than San Diego State? Probably. 23 and a half, I think, is the actual line. But it's a tough spot for Boise State. I mean, they're coming off that huge win, 29-24 against UNLV. Certainly a letdown spot. But what really catches my eye is Ashton Jeanty and his hunt for the Heisman. And I hate to go off topic, but I'm a little bit miffed that Ashton Jeanty is getting so much hype when I think back to 2015 when Christian McCaffrey set a record for all-purpose yards, ran for over 2,000 yards, had almost 700 receiving yards, and couldn't win the Heisman. And if they couldn't give it to Christian McCaffrey, I don't see how they could give it to Ashton Jeanty. But Jeanty's coming off a season-high 33 carries, but he's coming off a season low 128 rushing yards against UNLV. And what's significant to me is if you're going to carry the ball 33 times and you're only averaging 3 yards per carry, that means you're getting smacked every time you're touching the football. There's not too many 10, 15-yard breaking it, easy tackle kind of plays in that 33 carries for 128 yards. And this is their meal ticket. I mean, he carries the ball 33 times last week. I think they want to see him carry it about 13 times this week. And if they get up by 21, I think they keep this guy and keep him healthy. And I think this is a game where Boise State could take their foot off the gas. It looks like smooth sailing from here on out. And anytime it looks like that, teams tend to get tripped up. I'm not going to call for an outright upset, but a flat spot or a letdown for Boise State is what I'd say, and I'll take the points.
All right, you're looking to take the points here in this one here. Yeah, why not? I mean, 23 and a half at this particular point. That game kicking off tonight. Want to welcome those of you joining us here on the live stream here of the College Football Kickoff Show. Don't forget, hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Become part of that WagerTalk TV family. We got nothing but free content across every sport known to mankind, including Belarus handball, which I'm sure Adam Trigger is coming up with a way to do videos as we speak. However, Trig, I know your bread and butter is coming up next week. We got college basketball, but we got to get through week 10 of the college football season here. And man, this is going to be an interesting one. I hate this spot for Louisville. Have they even had a bye yet? It feels like they have just run the gauntlet. Now they got to take on Clemson in Clemson. Kind of still a big number here. Do you give Louisville, who's feisty, do you give them a shot here to maybe even pull the outright upset?
No, I'm with you, Joe. I don't really like the spot for Louisville either, but I also don't love the spot for Clemson. Not so much the spot, but I don't love laying 10.5 with Clemson in this spot. So I'm going to look at the total. I like the under here. I did a video on this earlier in the week. It was 62.5. It's now 61.5, 62. But with the benefit of having a couple of more days to look at it, the clear play in this game is the under, and I'll explain why. So last week, Louisville digs themselves to 20-0 hole. They come back and win 31-27. They outgain BC 461-318. Overcoming 3 turnovers. They win the game. They probably, with the benefit of another like 5 minutes, they probably cover that game. But something and I was on that. So even though I had a winning week last week in college football, one of my losses was Louisville -7. And as I'm watching the game, it's dawned on me that I made a mistake because it is very apparent Louisville plays up or down to their competition, right? And last week they played down to BC. I would argue that Louisville's 3 best performances this year, Joe, are the 3 games that they've lost. SMU, Notre Dame, and Miami. So that's why I don't really want to bet Clemson here and lay 10.5, even though, to the point you made, Louisville has not had a week off since week 3. So this will be their 7th straight game in a row. So I don't want to take Louisville on the 7th week in a row, but at the same time, I do think that Louisville tends to play up to their competition, and so that I wouldn't want to lay 10.5 with Clemson. The reason I'm looking toward the under here is I think Clemson's defense is a little bit watered down based on the fact that they've been basically up 20 or 30 in every game since the Georgia game. They've been a double-digit favorite in every single game since playing Georgia back in week 1. And they have one of the highest first half point margins, one of the biggest first half point margins of any team in the country. What that means is they've been in a lot of these garbage time situations, but also in those garbage time situations, it's been getting second and third string guys out there to get reps. You go back to Clemson's most recent game against Virginia, 2 late scores for Virginia to backdoor that game. And some of the scores have gotten out of hand because of that. I don't think Louisville is getting blown out like that here. I think they're a cut above what Clemson has faced recently. I also think they play up to their opponents. So, Louisville, while I don't think they're great defensively, they're not terrible. They do generate pressure. They don't get home a ton on the pressure that they do generate. They don't force a ton of turnovers, but the defense is good enough to keep them in this game. And then on the other side, the Clemson defense is very good. And like I said, I think they're a little bit watered down by some of these late game situations, which I don't think you have here. A, I don't think you have it here. And B, this is Clemson Saturday night. This is kind of a big opponent. I don't think Clemson is going to take the foot off the gas, but I think that's also notable for the defense. I don't think you're going to get into this free-for-all late in the game. I think Clemson is not going to want to give Louisville any momentum or ability to get back in this game. So I think this one goes under. I really think Clemson, Dabo goes a little bit conservative in these big games. This feels like the Florida State game. I know Florida State's terrible this year, but that was kind of a big Saturday night game where Clemson just clamped it down defensively. I believe the final score of that game was something like 29-13. I kind of feel like this is how this game goes. 30-20 type score, and I don't think it comes near that 61.5. So I'll call this one under, Joe.
You're expecting a bit of an under in this game here coming up at a couple of ACC teams. I will say this. I mean, the teams that Louisville has lost to all by, it feels like a touchdown, Trig. They're all ranked.
All a touchdown.
And they're all ranked. And you're right about the playing down. And they will certainly bring it, but will it be enough is the big question here against a Clemson team coming off a bye that seems quite honestly, to have figured a few things out after getting their ass whooped by Georgia here. So that game coming up on Saturday. We do have a Big 12 matchup that we are going to take a look at, and nobody better than Teddy Covers to dive into. Oh, look at that. TCU just fumbled again, Teddy. TCU taking on Baylor this week. And we got a good friend from Baylor, Teddy, and for the life of him, he cannot figure out why in the hell Dave Aranda keeps winning games and saving his job. They're praying that he gets his ass handed to him in this game so they can go back to, shit canning him. Not a big fan of Dave Aranda. I don't know. What do you think? It feels kind of light in this game. You trust Baylor to keep rolling here against TCU?
I think it's cheap.
Yeah.
So if he wants Aranda to be fired this week, he's talking to the wrong capper.
Yep.
Because I think that Baylor's live to cover the 3 in this game, and that's certainly the way I would look. Did you know that last year they started calling this game the Bluebonnet Battle?
Oh, no.
So apparently this rivalry is the Bluebonnet Battle now. I saw an online poll, 93% of respondents hated the name as opposed to liked it. But nonetheless, it is called the Bluebonnet Battle moving forward. And in recent years, this has been it's a competitive series between, 2 conference rivals, 2 in-state rivals, there's a fair bit of legitimate hatred between TCU and Baylor. And it's been a very one-sided series of late. TCU 4-0 straight up in the last 4 meetings, 8-1 straight up the last 9 meetings. The Baylor's 1 win during that span came in overtime. So TCU's dominated. They covered -13 last year. Before that, it was all single-digit point spread since before COVID, just like this year's spread. So it's been a very competitive series dominated by TCU. I can't say I like this spot for TCU one bit. All right. Last week, crazy game against Texas Tech. They fall down 14-3. They scored 28 unanswered. And then things get Texas Tech. They go up 14-3. Yep. Texas Tech scores 28 unanswered. And then TCU rallies from behind in the fourth quarter to steal the 1-point win. That was a high-energy game. That was a high-intensity game. Now they got to do it again in back-to-back weeks against a Baylor team that, look, Baylor struggled early in the year when facing some quality defenses, some real quality. I mean, they faced Utah, BYU, Iowa State. Those are all problematic for the Baylor offense. Once they've been able to run the football, like they have been able to do the last couple of games, all of a sudden, boom, they're putting up 59 and 38 points the last couple of weeks. And TCU, you mentioned it at the top, Joe. TCU's tendency to turn the ball over, -11 in turnover margin. That's made their defense wear down. Their time of possession's bad. And in a game like this, where one team's 128th in average turnover margin per game, a game lined at a field goal, in my mind, that's meaningful. Baylor or pass for this better when all said and done.
Teddy, no way we could look at an under in here, right? I mean, it is a big number at 64, but it doesn't feel like either of these defenses are going to dominate the game, no?
Yeah, I'm not excited about an under in this ball game. And I mean, so Baylor's shown a lot of big playability the last couple of weeks. Again, when you're taking a step down in defensive class, all of a sudden the big plays start to roll. And TCU's defense has shown a lot of vulnerability to big plays. So it's not like the Bears. I mean, we like Aranda as a defensive head coach, but it's not like this Bears team is loaded with defensive talent. I'm not a big fan of the under. I mean, look, I'm not playing the over, but if I had to pick one of the two, it wouldn't be the under.
Appreciate Rob Byside. I'm going to butcher your name there, Rob, but I appreciate you jumping in the chat room there on YouTube. In fact, if you guys have any questions or comments about these games in the Week 10 slate, drop them in the chat room. If you're joining us live, drop them in the comment section. If you're watching us on the replay, and he mentions, believe there is some weather and high winds rolling into them parts on the weekend, which may change the look on the total a little bit. Certainly worth keeping an eye on. We appreciate that, Rob, pointing that out. Also, Shedrick Bryant's there. Adam is all over Clemson, team total over, Clemson over, thinks he's going to roll over on Louisville. We will see, as I'm looking forward to seeing if Clemson can be taken that seriously. And they got to go through a pretty good Louisville team, I think. All right, so we got 3 games out of the way. We got some games that are being posted that we'll get to at the end, but we do have 2 games of big interest, top 25 teams battling. In fact, in this first game, we'll go roundtable, and it involves Pitt, the undefeated Pitt Panthers, taking on SMU. SMU now laying 7.5. I mean, what else can Pitt do besides win the games on the schedule? And that's what they've done. Although it doesn't feel like, Jesse, they're getting an awful lot of respect here in the marketplace for this one. Do you agree with the line? Do you think it's all SMU? Do you think Pitt's got a shot here?
I'll tell you what, Joe, the line really jumps out when you look at this 7-0 Pitt team, and they're ranked number 18 in the country, higher ranked than SMU, and they're getting 7 points. But my grandfather likes to say, I think the bookmakers are trying to tell us something, Jesse. SMU is a 7-point favorite for good reason, I believe. You got Kevin Jennings coming back this week. And what I really like is the turnover differential here. Pitt was the beneficiary of 5 turnovers in their last game, and SMU -6 in turnovers. They overcome the turnover deficit and win outright anyways against Duke. Obviously, Duke's not the same opponent as Pittsburgh, but questionable strength of schedule for Pitt. You can't say the same for SMU. Their only loss coming to an undefeated BYU team. Nobody thought BYU would be as good as they are, but it's pretty hard to argue with BYU after that win at the Bounce House. And SMU's got a win over Louisville, and Trigger just told you how good Louisville is. I think this game is going to be definitely home favorite controls this game. I think Pitt's, for a 7-0 team, I'm going to give them the F word, the fraud. Yeah. Well, you know, let's face it, there's 8 undefeated teams right now. There's 5 weeks left or 5 games left. How many undefeated teams do we expect to see at the end of the year? 1, maybe. Some of these guys are going to go down, and I think this is the spot for Pitt to go down.
Man, Trig, raise your hand if you had Pittsburgh and SMU undefeated in the ACC in Week 10 here. Anybody? No, I didn't think so. SMU had some high expectations. We all had big expectations. I think they, as a dark horse this year for the ACC. I don't know anybody that thought Pitt would be in this spot. But Jesse brings up a point. It's 7.5 for a reason. Any value in it at all for Pitt in this one, or are you looking at a total maybe in this one?
Oh no, I think SMU is going to destroy Pitt in this game. Like this is, first of all, like Pitt. Yeah, I was one of those people coming into the year that didn't think Pitt was going to be very good. And credit to their staff, credit to Eli Holstein. He's been awesome, and the Pitt offense has really been much better than I expected them to be. They've played 2 road games this year. They should have lost at Cincinnati. They could have lost at UNC. I'll comment on the game last week against Syracuse. Like, Pitt deserves all the credit in the world for confusing the crap out of Kyle McCord. The issue the reason I liked Syracuse so much last week is Pitt has been weak in the secondary. They've let teams throw on them. West Virginia threw all over them, and then they kind of stole that one late. North Carolina was moving the ball sort of with ease, and they pulled away in that one late. And I thought Syracuse would throw on them without issue. The problem was in that game, Pitt just confused it. Their defensive game plan was so good because I think they knew that Syracuse would not try to run the ball. Syracuse has had trouble on the offensive line. I think they knew they wouldn't try to run the ball. They are not going to be able to do that against SMU. SMU has a much more balanced attack. They move the ball without issue, but really they can do it via the run, via the pass. I think Pitt's going to need to respect that a little bit more. And so you're probably not going to get your multiple pick sixes here in the first half, 5 turnovers. They're going to have to do it like they would have to do it in any other game, Pitt, both sides of the ball, and I just don't have faith in Pitt being able to hold down this SMU offense. At the same time, I do think Pitt is due maybe for their bad game. Hasn't really come yet. And judging on both of the road games, I think that suggests that Pitt's dud will come on the road. Like I said, you go back to that Cincinnati game. I mean, they were dead in the water there and then scored 15 points in the final quarter to steal that game by 1. And North Carolina, I mean, I know they blew out Virginia, but they've been very disappointing relative to what I think a lot of people thought they were going to be this year. So Pitt's probably probably has a road loss coming at some point, and I do think it's going to be here.
It's, I mean, Teddy, what else can Pittsburgh do, right? They play the teams on the schedule. They win the games, whatever way they got to do it. I mean, Narduzzi, this isn't his first rodeo. I was a little skeptical of his defense early, but he seems to have figured some things out with them. They got the young gunslinger. But SMU, I think their only loss was, 2 points against unranked or undefeated, really, BYU. So something's got to give here, and Jesse said it. The books are laying this thing at a touchdown or more. Is it for a reason, Teddy? Are we giving too much credit to SMU? I'm worried about.
So SMU came into the season high, power rated much higher than Pitt. SMU's been certainly based on a strength of schedule standpoint, the markets look at SMU and saying they're the better of these two teams. They're clearly the better of these two teams. They're playing at home. And Pitt, again, last week's game, they're gaining 200 and something yards. The yardage numbers aren't impressive. So what happens when a team's +5 in turnovers and or a guy gets 5 interceptions and returns 3 of them for touchdowns before halftime? Of course you're not gaining a bunch of yards. Of course the second half's about burning clock. So your theory that maybe Pitt isn't getting the respect they deserve, I'm with you on that. All right. I can't lay with SMU, certainly not more than a touchdown. At 7, maybe. At 7.5, not a chance. Pitt's defense created those turnovers. McCord hasn't had a game like that all year. What happened when he faced Pitt? All of a sudden, tricky things from the defense and players in the secondary making big plays. Now, SMU has more speed. All right. They're no joke. I don't step in front of them lightly. But this is a Pitt defense that continues and is capable of making plays. And it's a Pitt team that I'm with you. In this point spread range, a little bit undervalued. I don't see a blowout here. It could happen, but I don't see it. I'm expecting a competitive game, and that means +7.5 for this bet.
Yeah, I agree with you, Teddy. It just feels like, how many more times are we going to have this conversation with Pittsburgh trying to figure out whether or not, how many more times are we going to watch Pittsburgh cover these games and win these games here before we start to take them seriously? We'll know a lot more about both of these teams at the come on Sunday, that is for sure. We also have, I think, a game in which I'm worried about this next one with Texas A&M and South Carolina, because it just feels like the whole world has South Carolina circled as the upset special this week. Feeling that maybe Texas A&M has got maybe a little letdown spot here. I don't know, Jess. I don't like South Carolina. I don't like their quarterback. A&M has a bit of a quarterback controversy, I guess. Are they going with the freshman who can run all over the place, or the 50-year-old Wegman who the hell knows what you're going to get when he shows up for the game if he's healthy? Are you worried this is a trendy dog here in South Carolina? Do you have any faith that A&M will go there and win this game, or is it dog or pass for you?
Well, A&M's off my Christmas list after they lost to Notre Dame in week 1. I had a 5% play on A&M. It just looked like a perfect setup, one of the toughest places to play in the country, and all those offensive line injuries for Notre Dame. And it's been really painful for me to watch them win 7 straight and sit at the top of the standings in the SEC since then. And, of course, after that disgusting display in week 1, I've been too scared to back them since then. But, my first glance at this game, I'm looking at it like, what does South Carolina do well, and how does that match up against what Texas A&M does well? and it doesn't look like a particularly inviting matchup for South Carolina. But that said, coming off of a bye week and Texas A&M coming off of a big win over LSU, you got the letdown spot. I think some of the success that Texas A&M has had recently has been that their opponents haven't had the ability to game plan for their quarterbacks, because it's you got Reed coming in or Wegman coming in. They don't know who to prepare for. Well, South Carolina certainly doesn't have an excuse to not be prepared for both of them here in this game. The fact that it is a night game and you're going to listen to Sandstorm at night with a bunch of drunk Gamecocks fans, and the Gamecocks they've played some close games at home. They had that 3-point loss to LSU, and they played Bama tough, losing by 2 points in Tuscaloosa. So they can certainly get it done. 3 in the hook. I'd certainly have to lean to South Carolina.
You're leaning towards Carolina. Another one. Trig, what do you think, man? You got enough faith in South Carolina at home to be able to pull out the upset? Because does this number get any closer to pick 'em, Trig? What do you think?
Well, I do think there's something to be said for these night games. It's a point I meant to make in that SMU game. Why I would lean more toward them, like these home night spots. I mean, Texas A&M did that last week, right? Like the big home spot at night, and they fed off the energy of that crowd, sort of overturned an early deficit and pulled out a win. Now, I'm not going to be surprised if South Carolina does that here. I don't know if that's like the right side per se. It still feels a little bit short, I suppose. But again, I think the better bet here is the total. Now it's going to probably come down to where this number ends up, but at 44, I definitely think you have to look at an under in this one as well. So the reason I think that this is a lower scoring game, one, I do think it's like this high energy, tight contest, night game, big game at in Columbia. Two, both of these teams, what they sort of don't do well, the other can't capitalize on. So like Texas A&M has a you can throw on them. Pass defense isn't great. South Carolina outside of the top 100 nationally in pass offense. I know they're going to want to run the ball, but Texas A&M is a very good run defense. So, all of that makes me think that this is like a tight, low-scoring game. Now, the problem with just coming out and playing an under, Joe, 44 doesn't leave you a ton of room for error. That's like one of those numbers where it's like the books are saying, okay, we know that that this is probably going to go under. So take your shot with a 44, because right, like one big play and suddenly that the game could flip on its head, and it doesn't take much to get to 44. With that being said, I still make this closer to 40 for the total. I think if this continued to creep up, I would definitely look at the under. Even at 44, this feels like a 20-17 type game. I think you've got room. So I lean toward the under. Probably no bet in this game for me, but I certainly lean toward the under here.
You like an interesting look. All right, so the under there, expecting maybe a little bit more defense. I mean, Teddy, it feels like Mike Elko, outside of that opening game against Notre Dame, has figured some things out, certainly defensively with this A&M team. But they bring in this freshman Marcel Reed against LSU. He runs all over them. They were not expecting the dual threat that they got there. He's still, now if I'm South Carolina, I got to prep for two quarterbacks that are totally different from one another. What are the chances they can go in there as a favorite and win this game?
I think pretty high. But just a quick point about something we talked about earlier in the show. Aston Ginty from Boise State for the Heisman. The last time a non-Power 4 conference team guy won a Heisman was Roger Staubach in 1963. Ginty's not getting my money for Heisman this year. It's been a while. Roger Staubach, that's some of them, my grandpa knew. And I'm old already. Now, let's talk about Mike Elko, because that's exactly where I'm going right here with my handicap for this game. All right. Texas A&M has been a vastly underachieving program for the better part of the last decade. The talent's been there. Jimbo Fisher didn't leave the cupboard empty. The cupboard was full. All right. And Fisher's X's and O's are why they're willing to pay him $75 million to go retire somewhere and bring in Elko. All right. but the talent level has been there for A&M. The returning starters are there for A&M. You know, this is a team that knew each other. When they were 18 started, everyone was back. And then we talk about what are the best point spread teams. I went back and did a study a while back. The very best point spread teams tend to be teams that have a bad loss the first 3 weeks of the season. Somewhere they stepped up in class, they got beat, or they stepped down in class and got beat. But the teams that have a misleading early season loss can offer great point spread value after. So A&M in Elko's first game couldn't beat a Notre Dame team that I'm impressed with. You know, they made me money in the Navy game. Since that time, all they've done is win. And the market like, oh, they're tired here. Oh, they're flat here. Elko's teams were money makers at the Duke, and I mean real money makers. All right, for 2 years running, and you loved them in step up in class games, and you loved them as an underdog, and you loved them on the road. I don't see all that different with the Aggies this year. All right, South Carolina's pretty good. Texas A&M's elite. If I'm playing, I'm laying, and it's a split line right now. You don't have to lay 3.5. If you can't find a -3 on Texas A&M right now, it's telling me very clearly you don't have enough outs. Open another account at a different sports book because there's 3s out there, and you should be able to find one as we speak.
I like that, Teddy. Yeah, it does feel like we're starting to get in week 10 here, levels to all of this. And, you know, it's interesting. I've seen a couple of questions come in. And by the way, shout out to you guys joining us in the chat room live here on the show. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. If you're joining us here for the first time, we certainly appreciate you hanging with us. And of course, any questions about games that you may have coming up in this week 10, drop them in the chat room. We're going to go over a few that you guys have asked about here in just a minute. But I want to talk big picture stuff here quick and get a thought from both of you. I'm starting to see some people chatting here as we're heading into week 10. And Jesse, I'll go with you. If you're looking for conference championship odds and those types of things right now, I keep seeing Miami to win the ACC across the board in a lot of people's books here that they want. They think Miami is the team to beat out of the ACC. They don't have to play Clemson during the season here. Their schedule is hilarious. They got Duke this weekend. They should not. They're never going to be a dog. So it's really just a matter of can they at plus money get them now at plus money while you can? Is Miami your ACC champion? I know Trig's got an answer to this as well.
Yeah, Joe, I'm the wrong guy to ask. This is like asking Kelly who's going to win the Big 12. Is it going to be K-State or not, right? I gave out Miami preseason to go over their season win total. And I did get Miami, I think, at plus 380 or 4-1 to win the ACC. Yep. So the way everything's sitting right now, the last thing I'm going to do is turn around and say I like Clemson because I'm still going to ride with the U. It's not like I'm a longtime Miami fan. And just you bring in the transfers that they brought in, you get yourself a quarterback to a team that was already stacked with 5-star recruits, and the prophecy comes to fruition. I mean, Miami's lived up to all my expectations, even if they do come up short in the title game. But I'm not going to be betting against them.
I mean, Trig, last chance to get plus money on Miami here as an ACC champion.
So the problem with the ACC and why I think I don't know if I would want to do that. So a couple things. Like, you have 4 teams right now in the ACC that have not lost a game. So after SMU trashes Pitt on Saturday night, all they have to do is beat Boston College, Virginia, and Cal. I'm not saying that it's, going to Virginia is a guaranteed win for them by any means. And Cal can throw a game together, but like, you can't discount the fact that they very easily, they very much control their own destiny to get in to be a 8-0 team in conference, right? Now, Pitt, obviously one of those undefeated teams in the Pitt SMU game will lose a game. We know that. Clemson, I mean, they have a very, a manageable schedule as well. As far as the ACC is concerned, 10-point favorite this weekend against Louisville at home. They have to go to Virginia Tech. That's not an easy game by any means. And then they play Pitt, so that Pitt game will be big. But like Miami, I mean, they've come close enough to slipping up, Joe. Like, I don't think we can rule out a slip up here from them, right? Like, I don't like Georgia Tech, but that's still a road game. Okay. I'll tell you right now, Syracuse game is going to be sold out because, that'll be the biggest home game for Syracuse in like 3 years, I think, probably since the last time Clemson was really, really good and came up here, that we're going to get a top 10 team at the Dome. It's the Saturday after Thanksgiving. It's going to be a very tough ticket to get. That'll be a sellout. And Miami has slipped up in that November come north spot before as a very good team. Off the top of my head, I think Pitt got them a few years back when they had a really good team and they had to go to Pitt like second to last Saturday of the year, lost the game. That's my problem with Miami, thinking like there are scenarios where they're not even in the championship game if they lose one of these games. So that would be my only concern. I'm not saying they haven't been the best team to this point, but you have Clemson and SMU that could very easily not lose a game as well. And you still have to go to Georgia Tech, and you still have to come up to Syracuse on the final week of the season. I don't know. I mean, they almost lost to Cal. They probably arguably should have lost to Virginia Tech. I don't think Miami's immune to a slip up here.
Okay, so Miami, you think, well, it is Mario Cristobal, Teddy, after all. Let's be realistic. Mario Cristobal's yet to have that game where he can't figure out what the clock is, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, he doesn't call timeout. He's calling plays when he should be kneeling. We know that's happening there. But you talked about the Big 12, and I'm seeing, and he mentioned it, K-State. We got K-State fans in the chat room, apparently, because everyone's K-State at almost 3-1 to win the Big 12, but I don't see any love for Iowa State. BYU a fraud in your opinion? Who would you give the edge to coming out of the Big 12, or is it still wide open as we head to Week 10 here?
So let me make this very clear. What's the number that you're I'm going to go back to the ACC for just a minute.
Sure.
What's the number you're seeing on for Miami to win the ACC right now, to win the ACC championship?
Plus 120.
Okay. You will find that number if Miami is in the championship game against Clemson. All right?
Probably.
You can get that same bet a month, December 7th, whatever day it is, and you don't have to, if Miami's there, you don't have to worry about Miami losing between now and then. Because Clemson will be favored in that game.
Yep.
All right? So when we're talking about making these future bets now, all right, we ain't looking at plus 120s.
Right.
All right?
Great point.
You want long shots, live long shots, because the shorter dogs, you'll be able to get that down the road. I mean, who's going to win the Big 12? Look, I haven't. I'll start with this. I haven't done a lick of research. I have no idea who's going to win the Big 12. I don't know who goes down the stretch. But when you talk about teams that are alive, yes, there are many other teams besides K-State that are alive, including Iowa State, BYU, Colorado, for that matter. Even though they lose the tiebreaker to K-State.
Yep.
You ask about BYU. I did not. I thought BYU was a fraud early in the season.
Yep.
And I bet against them once, got my teeth kicked in, learned my lesson. BYU is not a fraud. I thought that they're very live. And the quarterback plays it. I thought the defense would be a step slow. It's not. I had some concerns about the offensive skill position talent. The offensive skill position talent is fine, is good. I thought the secondary was slow. It isn't. BYU's live to go a long, long way before they suffer a loss.
I love it, Teddy. I love it.
Iowa State is too.
Yep. Well, we're going to learn a little something about Iowa State coming up over the next couple of weeks, but that's a real defense with BYU. I don't care what anybody says. That is a real defense that is going, as the weather gets worse, will be legit to look to back. So BYU, pretty good look for a long shot there. Not a long shot, or I guess maybe it is. We just learned that I guess Curtis Rourke back this week for Indiana. Seems to be a question a lot of guys have here. Teddy, I'll come back to you. Indiana, boy, it's amazing. A well-coached team that doesn't shoot itself in the foot can do amazing things, even in the Big Ten. Jonathan Smith, I think he's a year away from Michigan State being a team that you might want to back getting points at home. I just don't know that this is the team or this is the spot where I want to look to fade Indiana. What are you thinking?
So I stepped in front of Indiana and got my teeth kicked in.
Yep.
So they're not a team I'm excited about stepping in front. That said, if I was playing this game, I could only take the Sparty side. I really could. Last week's loss to the Wolverines, fraudulent in the sense, although Michigan State's done this a couple times this year. Their red zone, and one thing you don't want to have problems with against Indiana is red zone offense. And Michigan State's had a really hard time with getting stopped at the 1, getting stopped at the 3, going forward on 4th down. There's been a couple of games where the Spartans have been costing their backers because of the 4th down aggression and the inability to put the biscuit in the basket and get in the end zone. But we've reached the point now. Look, Indiana's one of these teams you don't want to necessarily step in front of. But if you haven't been riding this Hoosiers run, you can absolutely step in front of Indiana. Yep. They're not the best team in the Big Ten. Okay, they're not going to go through this season undefeated. They're having a great year. Things are broken right, but if I had to play this one, it would only be Spartans plus the points. I do worry that they left it on the field last week against Michigan. Right. And like I said, and Indiana's one of those teams that I've already learned this lesson. I'm supposed to learn it, continue to have learned this lesson that maybe we don't want to sit in front of. But the lean here is absolutely towards Michigan State plus the points.
Michigan plus the points at home taking on Indiana. Jess, we got a question. Oh, boy. I don't even want to talk about this game. Oklahoma State, my alma mater, unfortunately, looks like Gundy for the first time in a trillion years against the team not named Oklahoma is going to be getting points against Arizona State coming off the bye. Questions on whether Ollie Gordon's going to go. Arizona State coming off this bye here. Oklahoma State 5 straight losses. Any way you take the home dog here, or is Arizona State the play for you in this one they're asking?
Yeah, I don't think I'll be going against Mike Gundy as the home dog. We did see them compete at, they gave BYU probably their toughest game all season long. I'm not excited about it. I'm not rushing to the window to put my money on it, but if I was going to play it, I'd have to be taking the points. And Mike Gundy, of all the coaches, he's a guy that, when his team looks as bad as it could possibly look, when all hope appears to be lost, he pulls a rabbit out of the hat. We've seen that a few times from him, or more than a few times. So, yeah, it's Oklahoma State or pass for me.
Oklahoma State or pass, and it's supposed to be some crazy wind and weather, too, in Stillwater this weekend, so maybe a whole lot more running than a whole lot more passing in there. And Trig, I have to ask, because there seems to be a fascination here with UCF this weekend, who I guess fired their defensive coordinator, because that seems to be the problem. Yes, of course. It was the defensive coordinator that was the problem there. But interesting spot here for them. Are you buying? I know you were on Arizona. Was it last week or the week prior? You were on Arizona.
No, I've been very anti-Arizona.
Are you anti in this spot too?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I'm not going to change my opinion when Arizona's just proves me right every single week. Like I said, so I said before the Kansas State game, we did this show, or one of the shows, and I said, okay, I don't think either of these teams are really like top 25 caliber teams. Now, I've ate my words a little bit with K-State, but only because the schedule just breaks in their favor basically every week. Last week, I don't think they really deserve to beat Kansas, but they've been fortunate. Arizona's just proved me right basically every week since then. They lost that Kansas State game 31-7. Their numbers were then inflated again by a win over Utah, who, in subsequent weeks turned into a huge mess. If you remember going into that game at Utah, I believe Arizona won that game as an 8-point underdog, but like that was like the start of just like really understanding how dreadful Utah can be offensively in their current state. Arizona hasn't won since, loses to Texas Tech, crushed by BYU, blown out by Colorado. And then last week, I know everyone loved them last week. That was the spot they were supposed to get right. They lose to West Virginia. I would only continue to play against Arizona. There's zero chance I would bet Arizona here. I don't know if I want to, lay that number here with UCF, but it would only be UCF in this spot. I just don't think Arizona's a good football team. They continue to prove me right. So UCF or pass.
UCF or pass. Teddy, interesting question. They wanted to know, what is your approach when you see a Big Ten matchup like Illinois and Minnesota, and you see a 6-point line swing quickly during the week there? I think it opened up as a -3 favorite, Illinois, and then it all of a sudden it's -3, like PJ Fleck laying 3 on the road. It kind of makes you raise an eyebrow. Is that a game that you look where the book's that far off, or is it a game that you think maybe it moved too far and that's the kind of game you're looking to come back the other way?
So if I had a strong opinion about the game before the line moved and the line moved in my favor, if I liked the favorite at the open, who's now a dog, I would absolutely look to fade that line move. I went and looked. I couldn't figure out what that line move's about. That line move looks to me to be opinion.
Whew.
That's a pretty strong opinion, and it's not a game I have a strong feeling about, so it's not a game I'm going to get involved with. In general, all right, with a 6-point move, even less than that, with a 4 or 5-point move, you can only bet one way, and that's, take the new value, in my opinion, because you missed the best of the number the other way by a wide margin. And the new value here is not a side I'm excited about. So it's something I'll pass.
That's good. Good recommendation there, Teddy. But it has been maybe the biggest head-scratching move of them all this week. Shout out to Eric joining us in the chats. The Stoners Log having a good time in the chat room there. We appreciate you guys stopping by. Don't forget, thumbs up if you could. Hit that subscribe button. Become part of the WagerTalk TV family. And one final way on the way out. Jesse, I don't know. There seems to be a lot of chatter about Army laying 3 touchdowns against anybody, much less Air Force. What do you do? Do you look at the service academies here? Is it an automatic under for you, or has Army and Navy completely thrown the service academy unders right out the window here?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be betting on an over, but you're not going to get any value if you like the under. So you're going to get a bad number, or the number is going to be too low. I go back to what I said about Pitt, though. You got, I believe Army's another undefeated team.
Yep.
And how many undefeated teams are we going to see at the end of the year? They got to lose eventually. I mean, Air Force has been so bad this year.
Oof. But
I mean, this is the kind of game where sometimes it doesn't matter if one team's good and one team's bad. The crazy things can happen in a game like this. So, I don't have any action here, but nothing would surprise me. Let's say that. Everything's on the table in this game.
Yeah, what a difference a year makes. I mean, if this was Air Force was undefeated in this spot last year against Army, who couldn't do anything well, and guess what? Army ends up winning that game outright. So it'll be interesting to see if they flip-flop. But 21.5 points is a ton of points for 2 teams who run the option. We'll see what happens in that one. Seems to be a lot of Army love in the chat room here in this one. There should be a lot of love at WagerTalk.com with what you guys are locked and loaded with here. And Trig, talk to us, man. I mean, plenty of college football action week 10, the NFL week 9. I know your college basketball videos are crushing it. Anybody looking to get a head start on college hoops, which starts next week, I'd encourage you to go check out the playlist on our YouTube page there with Trig, who's been covering 30 of the teams that he went to go see last year, Trig. So you got a couple of more coming up, but no better way to get a leg up. Do you have anything locked, loaded, look ahead wise in college basketball and future plays? And what do you got this weekend over at your page?
Yeah, so I'm not going to give like the futures as like client plays. I talked about on a show last week, really liking Princeton to win the Ivy League when they were still plus money. I think they're now, like -125, -130. Some places, I still think that's a good bet if you're willing to tie your money up, as they're far and away the best team in that league this year. Probably should be -350. But as far as games for Monday, I'll probably wait until Sunday night or Monday morning when everyone can bet them to lock anything in, because I obviously want you guys to get a playable number, or as close to a playable number as possible. But college hoop starts Monday, so certainly give me a look for that. Up 49 units, I think, across the last 2 seasons of profit. and hope to do it again this year. As far as college football is concerned, my entire Saturday card is up. Everything's going on the same card. So that's up on my page right now. There's already 2 4%ers on there. Anything I add is going to be attached to that package. And that's about it. Yeah, looking forward to college hoop tipping off on Monday.
Love it. And by the way, we do have a Prez Burner account hanging out in the chat room, apparently, but we'll deal with him in a minute. Teddy, what do you got rolling here, my man, this week? I know college football, of course, the NFL. Dare I say, are we dabbling in the NBA yet, Teddy? What do we need to know over at your page at WagerTalk?
Well, we're not dabbling in the NBA. We're busting ass in the NBA every day, dude. I'm on an 80% NBA run right now. Going to the weekend. Easy winner last night, right side. Easy winner the night before, right side. Locked and loaded for today. I think we have another right side in the association. Up 221 units of profit in the NBA since 2022. So that's been a nice sport for us. We got a 5-star NFL big ticket, or 5% NFL big ticket going on Sunday. 73% with the NFL, 5% big ticket since 2023. And, of course, college football as well. I'm still adding to that card. I expect to add a little bit more when we get through with this show. But you can get everything. And, again, don't buy a play, buy a package. All the packages available right now, WT.buzz/TC.
Amen to that. Dabbling, great NBA card coming up tonight as well. And how about you, Jesse? No doubt. Lock loaded here, of course, in college football. But what do you got? NFL, NBA? What do you got rolling for us here? And college basketball with you. Have you dove in? Do you enjoy college hoops? What can we expect from you there?
Well, I'm not quite Adam Trigger, but I do love the college basketball. And yeah, I put out, all sports are roughly the same for me. I dabble at the beginning of the year, and I ramp it up as we get closer to postseason. College basketball, NBA basketball, the same. I started with WagerTalk in 2021 with the sister site, and since that time, #1 profit handicapper with NBA player props. I do have a player prop available in my package today, and I've got a free player prop available on Russell Westbrook over PRA, and that's on YouTube TV. You can check that out. NBA, like Teddy said, I'm more than just dabbling with that.
Got a little something for everyone here across the board with these three guys over in their page at WagerTalk.com. Big shout out to the Stoners Log. Way to go, man. Appreciate you hanging out in the YouTube Shorts feed. Of course, Eric D and the gang hanging out in our YouTube channel there. Appreciate you guys. G Hurt in the house, as well as Bill Sandoval. Thank you guys on Instagram for hanging, as well as TikTok and X. Shout out to those of you on Facebook. And once again, if you have a game or a question, drop it in the comments section here on whatever platform you're on, because we monitor them right up until kickoff. So if you got any last minute questions, we certainly encourage you guys to drop them in there and we will answer them for you. Also, don't forget, last call on Saturdays, 11 a.m. Eastern time, as we give you all the latest information right up until kickoff. Everything you need to know live from the Risk Room at the Westgate. But on behalf of Jesse, Adam, and Teddy, the A-team here on this Friday, we appreciate it as always. Hit that subscribe button and get ready. The NBA tip-off show is back, coming your way here. Make sure you look for it. We will see you guys again next week, week 11 of the college football season. Until then, best of luck, guys. We'll see you again soon.